guys, Tirelis here with another Warlords of Draenor beta video. In this video I'll be looking at the last of the Warlock specs in Demonology Warlocks. Very much like Affliction and Destruction, there's not a lot going on with Demonology Warlocks because they got a lot of changes back in Mists of Pandaria, and so Blizzard did not want to come through with the next expansion and bring another huge set of changes for the specs. Instead, they're just going to be focusing on cleaning up, polishing the specs that are already there and making Warlocks even better. So with that, we're going to take a look at their major changes, their new changed and removed abilities, their new glyphs, their new Draenor perks, and then finally their new and changed talents. Now, once again, just like Affliction and Destruction, Demonology got a nerf to their raid utility. Their raid utility was considered to be too powerful compared to the other classes. They just brought too much to the table, so they nerfed it in two areas. The first of these is Demonic Gateways. Demonic Gateways can now only be used every 90 seconds, up from 45 seconds, and they can only be placed 40 yards as opposed to 70 yards away. The second nerf comes in the form of Healthstones. Healthstones can no longer crit, and their cooldown will not reset until a player leaves combat. So two pretty significant changes, nerfs to the raid utility of a Demonology Warlocks in general, and that's just to bring them in line with the other classes that just did not have as much, because Blizzard did not want a situation to which people were taking Warlocks just because they had better raid utility than the other classes. The next major change is the fact that there's a reduction in mobility for Warlocks. Fellflame has been removed, and there's a change to Kill Jaden's Cutting, which we'll get to in the talent section, but Fellflame has been removed. Blizzard wanted to reduce the amount of mobility that casters had in the game, so that it was a difficult choice, whether or not you had to move or not, from dealing with a boss fight or boss mechanic. It was too easy before to just switch back and forth between, your abilities that you use while moving and your abilities that you use while not moving. So they wanted to kind of bring back that decision in that thought process to the game. The last major change to Demonology Warlocks comes in the form of Grimoire of Sacrifice. It didn't make sense for there to be an ability that sacrificed your demon in Demonology. It's all about being with demons, working with demons back and forth, and it just didn't make sense for Grimoire of Sacrifice to be there. So instead they replaced it with Grimoire of Synergy, and Grimoire of Synergy, when you or your demon deal damage, there is a chance to trigger Demonic Synergy, granting the other one 15% increased damage for 15 seconds. So, it kind of just increases that bond between your demon and yourself. With that brings us to the new changed and removed abilities for Demonology Warlocks. The one new ability to Warlocks in general is Blood Pact. Sounds familiar because it used to be tied to an imp a long time ago, and then things got changed around. I believe its ability to grant stamina to all nearby party and raid members moved to Dark Intent, and now it's been changed again. So Blood Pact, new passive, a demonic pact that increases the stamina of all nearby party and raid members by 10%. So that comes from Dark Intent. It also increases your own stamina by an additional 10% and increases all healing you receive by 10%. That comes from Fell Armor, which has been removed from the game. So basically it's just taking from two different abilities, throwing them into one and making it a passive that's attached to the Warlock and not into any pet. There are several changed abilities for a Demonology Warlock. The first is that Hand of Gul'dan will no longer snare people. So PvP, you no longer have that snare attached to your Hand of Gul'dan, the dot effect. Molten Core has kind of gained a execute phase portion of it. Everything that was a part of it before is still there. So the 8% chance from Wild Imp Firebolt damage and from Hand of Gul'dan dots, that's still there. However, your Shadow Bolt and Soulfire on targets below 25% health will also grant you Molten Core stacks. So that's a pretty cool change that, helps out with the execute phase of a boss fight. The next change comes in Master Demonologist. So a bunch of this is more wording changes, but it increases all damage done by you and your demon servants by 6%, so that's still there. However, instead of giving a flat damage buff to Metamorphosis, it now further increases the damage of your Touch of Chaos, Chaos Wave, Doom, Immolation Aura, and Soulfire while in Metamorphosis by 12%. Now, it no longer increases caster form damage. I'm not quite sure if that's just a, wording change, but that is no longer a part of it now. Your command demon ability for a Voidwalker has changed to Suffering instead of Disarm, because Disarm has been removed from the game. They've also added an ability for Doomguard and Infernal that we will talk about later, and that's because they're, that actually becomes relevant now due to one of the level 100 talents. Dark Intent now grants 5% multi-strike instead of the 10% stamina, so you do nothing but gain stuff there because the 10% stamina was just put in the Blood Pact, so you gain 5% multi-strike from that ability now. Shadow Bolt, a nerf here, pretty big nerf if you ask me. It's now a 2.5 second cast as opposed to a 1.7 second cast, so kind of disappointing, but something to look at there. Once again, trying to keep casters more immobile than mobile, so they got a nerf there to their cast time. Fell Hunters and Observers, their Spell Lock and Optic Blast no longer will silence the enemy. This is the same thing as the Disarm. Disarm has been removed across the board for all classes. Same thing with Blanket Silences. They've been removed across, all classes. So now Spell Lock and Optic Blast, they will just interrupt spell casting. They will not silence. Seer Magic, which I believe comes from an Imp, or Fell Imp, its cooldown has been increased to 30 seconds from 20 seconds. A Succubus's Seduction and a Shivara's Mesmerize now have a 30-second cooldown. And then lastly, when a Terror Guard dies, it will no longer cast Terrifying Roar. So, little change there. There are many removed abilities for a Demonology Warlock. The first of these is going to be Carrion Swarm. Carrion Swarm has been removed from the game. There's Demonic Rebirth, so that was when your demon died. You had kind of a fast track to getting them resummoned. That has now been removed. Felguard's Axe Tossed has been removed. Blizzard's trying to cut down on stuns and a lot of CC in the game, and having a ranged stun was something they just didn't want. So Axe Toss has been removed from the game. Metamorphosis Void Ray has been removed because, well, you don't have Fell Flame anymore, so that's gone. All curses from the game have been removed. Curse of Elements, Curse of Enfeeblement, Curse of Exhaustion, any type of curse across any of the specs that were there, they've all been removed from the game. The only one that used to be a curse that's still in the game is Agony, but that has not been a curse for a long time now. With that being said, Metamorphosis Cursed Ores has been removed from the game because there's really no reason for it anymore. Nether Plating, it's been removed, and its armor increase has been just baked into Metamorphosis. However, I've looked all over the place, I cannot find it. The duration and stun snare effects being reduced by 35% has not been added into Metamorphosis, so that part has been removed. Decimation has been removed, and its effects have been merged into Soulfire and Shadow Bolt, so just don't look for it in the spellbook anymore. It's now directly into those abilities. Fell Armor, mentioned before, has been removed. Pandemic has also been removed. I don't know if there's a replacement for it, but so far it's been removed. It's just gone. Twilight Ward is the last ability that has been removed, because I already discussed Disarm, but Twilight Ward has been removed, so you no longer have that shadow or holy damage, absorption that you used to have from that ability. There are several new glyphs for a Demonology Warlock. One of them I actually really like. The first of these is Glyph of Dark Soul, which reduces the duration and cooldown of Dark Soul by 50%. The second one is Glyph of Life Pact. This one I really like, and I think it's going to be used by a lot of PvEers. Mana costs on all your spells are reduced by 30%, but life tap can no longer be cast, and your health will drop 1% per second. Your health cannot drop below 75% from this effect. Notice that it says exclusive with Glyph of Life Tap. That means you can only have one or the other active at a time. I really like this for PvE because the way healing works now, it's not like you have to keep everyone topped off. You're going to find that your raid healers are just going to be struggling all the time to keep, health pools up. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are add-ons out there that say, hey, this Warlock has Glyph of Life Pack, you don't need to bother healing them above 75% because it's just going to go back down. So healers will try and keep you at 75%, and then that gives you more DPS because you're not worrying about life tapping throughout any type of boss fight. I do see that being taken by some PvEers. There is Glyph of Shadow Flame, which targets affected by your Hand of Gul'dan. Damage over time are now also snared by 50%. So everything that was baseline for Hand of Gul'dan is now in a glyph. PvPers, if you want that snare back, you gotta glyph into it. The last change is going to be, well, sorry, there are two more, not just one. There is Glyph of Strengthened Resolved, which Unending Resolve reduces damage taken by an additional 20%, but its cooldown is increased by 60%. Notice that it's exclusive with Glyph of Unending Resolve and Glyph of Eternal Resolve. That basically means only one of those may be active as a glyph at a time, not all three, not two, only one. And then finally the last one is a minor glyph, and that is going to be Glyph of Metamorphosis. When you activate Metamorphosis, you no longer transform into a demon, but instead grow demon wings on your normal form. So, a change there. The Draenor perks for a Demonology Warlock, to be honest, are not that great. I don't really like them that much. There's Enhanced Corruption, which your corruption generates one additional demonic fury each time it deals damage. There is Empowered Drain Life. Health gained from your drain life grows by 10% each time it heals you. I find that one somewhat interesting. There's Empowered Doom, which your Doom has an additional 20% critical strike chance. And then lastly, there's Empowered Demons. Grants your demon pets an additional 10% haste and 10% critical strike chance. I don't really like that one. It's just, I don't know. I like the Draenor perks that actually, give you a change to how you feel, and something like Empowered Demons, which empowers your pets, and something like Empowered Doom that you can only use, when you're in the Metamorphosis state. Don't really have much effect. So, not a big fan of the Draenor perks that were given to a Warlock. So, with that being said, the last thing we need to look at are talents. And I have to go from the top to the bottom, and while I'm doing this, I'm going to be building up my Demonic Fury down at the bottom while I go through these. First of all, you should know that Soul Leech no longer has abilities on it that are applied to it that have been removed from the game. So like Malefic Grasp and Fell Flame are no longer going to show up on there. On the level 30 tier, you'll notice Howl of Terror. You have lost Howl of Terror as a baseline ability. It's no longer available to you, and you have to get it in the level 30 tier. Demonic Breath has just been removed, and Howl of Terror took its place. Blizzard really cut down on AoE fears. They don't like them, so they're in a talent tree to some degree, or they've been removed. Know that Mortal Coil shares a diminishing return with all mesmerize effects, so that if you use Succubus's Seduction effect, it will share a diminishing return with Mortal Coil. And that's actually a problem that Warlocks are going to have in the game, is that they've got a lot of abilities that all share diminishing returns with each other, and I think going through this tree, you're going to want to, select abilities based on keeping your diminishing returns separated so that you don't have too many under the same diminishing return bubble. On the level 60 tier, Blood Horror saw its cooldown doubled, and Blood Horror also shares diminishing returns with all other mesmerize effects. Unbound Will also saw its cooldown doubled. So the level 60 tier, with the exception of Burning Rush, they all saw their cooldowns doubled. We already discussed Grimor's Synergy. On the level 90 tier, Killjade's Cunning has been turned into a Spirit Walker's Grace for Warlocks. better version of Spirit Walker's Grace. Shamans have to actually glyph into this version of Spirit Walker's Grace. Theirs is normally like 2 minutes and like 14 seconds or 15 seconds, and I always felt that that was too long. And this one is only going to be 1 minute cooldown for Killjaden's Cunning, and it's 8 seconds that you can cast spells. So I don't know how popular it is. I know a lot of warlocks are upset that it has been changed, but they're trying, like I said, to reduce the mobility of casters in the game. Not just casters, healers as well. That brings us to our level 100 talents, and the reason I've been building Demonic Fury is because this talent on the left requires a lot of demonic energy, and I'm going to try and set it up so you can see, just how interesting it is. Launch a ball of demon bolts. You launch a ball of demonic energy at the target, dealing 26,000 chaos damage. Each demon bolt amplifies further demon bolts, increasing damage by 20% and the cost by 100% for 40 seconds, reduced by haste, stacking up to 10 times. So you're gonna burn through your demonic energy really quickly. The interesting portion comes in the fact of whether or not you can build up your Demonic Fury fast enough to keep the stacks going so that they get even more powerful. So we'll go ahead and transform right here, and I'm going to use Demon Bolt, and we're gonna see, as you can see, my demonic energy is plummeting, but my damage is going up. So I'm gonna exit out, and I'm going to try my best to get as much Demonic Fury rolling as possible so I can get it back up, and then I can get back into the form and get some more Demon Bolts off before I lose my stacks. As you can see, I'm down to 10 seconds on the top right hand corner, those stacks getting lower. So I'm going to pop it right here and cast some more Demon Bolts. And I only got one off that time before I lost my abilities, so I double clicked there, so now I probably will not get another one off. But it's kind of interesting how you're trying to build up that Demonic Fury and attempt to build up that Demonic Fury and then try and get those stacks up, because it stacks up to 10 times. Right now my Demon Bolt damage is increased by 100%. I mean, that's a lot. But its cost is so through the roof that you really can't get many off. So Demon Bolt is going to be used as kind of like a big, a big DPS burst, if you'll say. I don't see it being used in PvE as much, but in PvP I definitely can see its merits on, it being used, as kind of a burst thing while in Metamorphosis form. I'm not sure, because then that also reduces the amount of time you're in the increased armor form of Metamorphosis, so I don't know how popular that'll be, but it's one of the most interesting level 100 talents out there, just because of its interaction back and forth between Metamorphosis, as opposed to, something like Arcane Blast, where you're just always in caster form. On the right hand side is Demonic Servitude. Now this is something I didn't like for the other specs, but I think is awesome for Demonology Warlocks, and that's because you are able to maintain your control over even greater demons indefinitely, allowing you to summon Doom Guards and Infernals as permanent pets. Now, I mentioned earlier that they've added abilities for Command Demon for Doom Guard and Infernal, and that's because of this. Now you have a pet bar for your, Doom Guards, Infernals that is going to be permanent. So I'm going to go ahead and summon a Doom Guard here, and notice that it doesn't activate a cooldown. It's just going to replace my pet. And I have a Doom Guard here. And when you have things like Cripple, which, start attacking and so forth, a ranged Doom Guard, casting Cripple, 80% movement speed reduction is devastating in the new PvP setup of how Warlords of Draenor is. In Warlords of Draenor, stuns, snares, and roots are the worst. especially for melee, because that's how, casters are going to counteract them. So having something like this makes it really powerful. I can see any PvP Demonology Warlock taking Demonic Servitude just to have a Doomguard running around with you. Being able to range down and cast things like this, I think it's awesome. So, you see that there. The new ability that is for Command Demon is going to be Shadow Lock, and it functions just like Spell Lock and Optic Blast. It's an interrupt, and so forth. Then you have Infernal. I mean, it's also cool that you can just keep summoning these back and forth, so depending on the situation, you can summon back and forth. In an AoE situation, in a PvE, you may want to summon Infernal out there, an Infernal doing damage. The ability that they have is Meteor Strike. That is their Command Demon ability, and he just used it right there. It stuns everyone in an AoE radius, so that's actually pretty cool too. It's just kind of fun and interesting to have those powerful demons at your command that you didn't have before. So really cool changes to Demonology Warlock. I probably would take that over Demon Bolt. As cool as Demon Bolt is, I just really trust me when I say that snares, roots, and stuns are the most powerful things in the new PvP setup that they have in Warlords of Draenor. So the last ability here is Cataclysm, which really is great for the other specs, but really isn't that great for Demonology. And it conjures a Cataclysm at a target location, dealing 43,000 Shadow Flame damage to all enemies within 8 yards and applying Corruption. Dots don't really have as much weight with Demonology as they do with the other two specs. So, I mean, it applies Immolation for a Destruction Warlock, and then it applies, I believe, Corruption as well for an Affliction Warlock, but it just doesn't have as much power in Demonology. So you can see right here, it's got an amazing spell visual that they have on it, but it takes a long time to cast, and then it hits, and then you have Corruption ticking on the target, which is okay, but I think Demon Bolt and Demonic Servitude are going to serve, a much greater purpose for a Demonology Warlock. Well, that's everything dealing with Demonology Warlocks. Not too many changes. I guess, same changes as Warlocks across the board, except for Grimoire of Sacrifice, changing with Grimoire of Synergy. Otherwise, that's everything, and I will see you guys in the next video. Tirelis out.